Did Elton John's mother poison him against the father he loathed? Rock stars and unhappy childhoods go together like cocaine and rolled up £50 notes. It's something most. So when I came to write Sir Elton John's unauthorized biography, I didn't question too hard his bleak backstory of a sensitive only child, baptized Reginald Dwight, and a domineering dad serving as a flight lieutenant in the Royal Air Force, who he believed you never really loved or understood him. That early misery, all this is laid bare in the trailer to his new eagerly awaited biopic, Rocketman, which has been co-produced by Sir Elton and his husband, David Furnish, and is said to be awards and all portrait of the complex, often troubled character whose record sales exceed 300 million and whose concerts still draw ecstatic crowds all over the world. In the film, the young Reg is seen describing himself as a fat boy from nowhere, before being advised by a black American musician, "You got to kill the person you were born to be in order to become the person you want to be." How much of glossy biopics are actually true has always been open to debate, but this is a lesson young Master Dwight clearly learned early and well. By Sir Elton's own, he later said, "My father was so stupid with me it was ridiculous. It was just pure." Reggie's parents soon divorced, with custody granted to his doting mother, Sheila. But Stanley remained. When his parents divorced, I did feel bitter because of the way my mum was treated. She had to bear all. Then he went away and 5 months later got married to this woman and had 4 kids in 4 years. My pride was real. One of his lasting grudges against his father was not being allowed a pair of Hush Puppies suede boots because they were too way out. It was in reaction. It also supposedly explained why, for so many years, the megastar invested more love in inanimate objects than human beings, accumulating vast collections of records, clothes, houses, cars, and artworks, and never shopping at Cartier, the jeweler without a supermarket trolley. There's only one problem with this compelling version of why Sir Elton John has always ranked so highly in the catalogue of superlative performers from broken or dysfunctional homes. It's a fantastic work of fiction. While I was researching my biography, Elton was undergoing multiple detoxification and so unavailable to be interviewed. However, as time went on, Bernie would relay a question to Sir Elton for me and an answer would come back, so in the end I felt kind of authorized. Then, he was reading the book, he told me, and considered it pretty accurate, so would I like to go to his West London home for tea the following afternoon? When we met over Earl Grey and chocolate cake, he scarcely bothered with small talk, but instead virtually dictated a postscript chapter about his rehab for the paperback edition. Subsequently, however, on the subject of Sir Elton's father, Stanley Dwight, it hadn't been spot on at all. A few months later, despite his firstborn's many accusations of coldness and indifference, Stanley had always maintained a dignified silence. Now he had Stanley, it turned out, had not been serving abroad with the RAF when the former Reggie was born, so missing his babyhood. Had been on a home. Sheila and little Reggie could have accompanied him overseas, but Sheila always refused because she found other officers' wives snobbish. Far from being last Christmas, the nation's heart melted when John Lewis' seasonal TV ad showed a child actor as Reggie, excitedly tearing the gift wrappings from his very first piano, watched by his proud mum and grandma. In reality, and what of Stanley's stuffy dress code that supposedly forbade the teenage Reggie even the mildly nonconformist suede boots that all his friends wore and gave rise to the future Elton's wild wardrobe? His stepmother in the first flush of superstardom, he seemed to reach out to Stanley, Edna, and his 4 young half-brothers, arranging front row seats for them at his shows, playing football in the garden with the boys, even buying Stanley who never asked anything from him, a new Peugeot to replace his beaten-up Mini. Then, with now 72 and the father of 2 sons, Sir Elton is gearing up for a burst of attention rivaling any in his giant spectacled glam rock heyday. Few music the stakes are high for a performer whose fame, wealth, and honors somehow never seem enough. For it reignite. I have no such vested interest. The film's makers, the first was how Sir Elton wrote Your Song in minutes at his mum's maisonette in Pinner after Bernie Taupin had jotted down the words at the breakfast table. The second was how he, but one further revelation, evidently, is left out of the film, that Stanley Dwight was not the aloof, repressive parent his famous son has always portrayed, but the complete opposite. For Sir Elton, Stanley died in 1991 after years of ill health. Sir Elton said, in the end, no one was to be exempt from that clanging shutter, not even his mother, Sheila, his tireless champion throughout the early years when he was struggling to make it as a session musician and backup vocalist. After he met David Furnish, a rift opened up between mother and son that apparently lasted until shortly before Sheila's death in 2017. At her 90th, all this sits oddly with Sir Elton's latter status as agony uncle to troubled younger popsters and the channel for a whole country's grief after the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, when he played Candle in the Wind, recast as Goodbye England's Rose, at her funeral in Westminster Abbey. For me, the real story of the Rocketman bears out the wisdom of his first mentor, the music publisher Dick James, almost a surrogate father who invested huge amounts of money and effort to launch him. The artiste on his way up lives with failure magnificently, James once observed. If never yet met, if Sir Elton goes on performing until he's 100, I doubt he'll ever acquire that knack, eh? Sir Elton by Philip Norman is published by Pan Books, priced £9.99. Shocking moment: Arnold Schwarzenegger, 71, is drop-kicked from behind by a crazed fan while posing. Queen of the Swingers playful Kate poses in the Back to Nature garden she designed herself for. Gangster's Paradise drug dealer jailed over £5M cocaine ring is pictured wallowing in luxury during. Lady Gabriella Windsor wows in diamond-studded Russian fringe-style tiara worn by her mother Andorra. Violence breaks out at Tommy Robinson campaign event as masked supporters clash with crowds shouting. Eurovision presenter Graham Norton has fans in stitches after describing one singer as the Albanian. Madonna teases fans with backstage picture at Eurovision after Primal screams Bobby Gillespie. British grandmother Lindsay Sandiford says she now just wants to die as she faces being shot for. Don't let me die. 10-year-old girl with asthma begged her mother not to let her go only to die. Revealed Big Lizzy Captain was sacked for misusing his official car at weekends after being. They're still the best of friends. Fergie and ex-husband a royal thrashing. Manchester City. I wanted to be a boy, says Fleabag star Phoebe Waller-Bridge reveals she would have jumped at the. Iceland's hard-left bondage punk Eurovision group faces punishment after displaying Palestine flags. Now hackers can steal your ID and bank details from a coffee machine. Cybersecurity, the world's most unlikely and gullible assassins, how these fame-hungry girls who thought they.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.